Welcome, everyone. This is Jared Casey, and I'm here today with Sarah Brown. She is a spouse of a wonderful man in recovery, and she's also willing to help us with the programs around family, addiction, and recovery and support. Want to say hi, Sarah?
Hi.
She says hi. So we're going to go over this presentation together, and we'll have Q&A available. You can either chat those questions in or you can ask those questions as the presentation goes along. Follow along. So today we're going to talk about navigating pitfalls in recovery. And if you notice this fun picture, this is from a famous video game, and this ages me a little bit, from the Atari system in the early 1980s called Pitfall. And yeah, my brother was addicted to this game and he did not let me play it, so I was stuck watching a lot. But it was still cool. So if you're cool like me and have enjoyed video games in the early 80s, you know what that's about. So the biggest pitfall that I want to address, maybe not the biggest, but one of the biggest pitfalls that Sarah and I want to talk about and address is the enabling pitfall. And how do you know if you are helping your loved one, if you're enabling their addiction? What's the difference? And just a little picture here, if you read child stories, sometimes there's this book called The Giving Tree. It's also been known as a codependent book if you look at it and read it thoroughly. And I think there's some knowledge there. So the story and the premise of this book is pretty simple. There's this wonderful tree that a little boy likes to go to and enjoy, and he sits under the shade and he talks to the tree and he plays on its branches and talks and says all these things. And the tree's always like, "What can I do for you, boy?" And the boy's like, "I need this." And the tree's always willing to give just about anything to help the boy feel joy and happiness. But as the boy grows, his base needs are no longer satisfied. He's no longer happy about just hanging out with the tree and swinging in the branches. He decides he wants more out of life. So he takes a few limbs to build a house and does, hurts the tree a little bit, but the tree's still alive. And eventually comes back, and the theme of the book is, "Hey tree, can I have this?" Tree says, "If it'll make you happy, sure, I'll do it." Until one day the boy says, "Can I have your whole tree? Can I have the whole base? I want to make a boat and go on a sailing trip." And what does the tree say? Oh, and the tree was happy, but not really. So that's kind of the model of our enabling behavior here. How often do we go to that not really part? So, Sarah, what's your kind of take on enabling and what you've seen on the family side? And does this resonate with you?
Definitely resonates with me. A lot of times I felt like I was being so helpful. And I told myself, they are so lucky because I do so much for them. I'm so helpful. This is how I can help them. And it took a long time to realize that was enabling, and it wasn't helping them or helping me.
What did it take to recognize that you're in that enabling space? Was there like some things that kind of popped up for you?
It took talking to other people. I wasn't aware I was even doing it until I could talk to other people that had loved ones that were addicted, in different programs that I went to. And until I was aware of it, I didn't know it was enabling. So I really just felt like I was helpful. I loved them so much. I would do anything for them. And that's what was important for me to share. And I didn't realize how much it hurt the others around me, and myself, most importantly.
So one of those themes is just kind of awareness, right? Becoming more aware of, has this crossed some boundaries? Have I slipped in this space where I'm no longer myself? And this is the staying down here is, "To thyself be true." William Shakespeare's. All of a sudden, I don't feel like me. I feel like I'm giving all of me for this addiction or for this mental health struggle. Did that resonate with you?
Oh, absolutely. I gave all of myself. And until someone asked me simple questions like, "What's your favorite color?" I couldn't even answer anymore. And awareness was the biggest part for me, and trying to find my own recovery and happiness, because I wasn't aware I even got just lost in the addiction and how I could help or enable my addicted loved one.
So if you're seeing a family, or families listening to this or watching this, and they're kind of recognizing that they're in this enabling phase, what would be some support that you would recommend for them? How could they start to learn from this part and get to more of the helping side of the equation?
One thing that's been helpful for me, that a good friend shared with me is, did they ask for help? Did I do something out of, oh, I'm helpful, I'll take out the garbage for them? Did they ask for help?
Mm.
Did they ask you to drive them somewhere? Did they ask you, or am I just volunteering all of this time and effort to everything so they knew how much I loved and cared about them? Asking was a big thing. That's helped me. Boundaries was a hard thing for me to grasp for a long time. Boundaries felt too hard. It's like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need. I don't know. They're okay. I want to help. I love them. So the awareness, it really just comes back to awareness with me. I wasn't aware that I was doing these things. And having a different person's perspective to be able to say, hey, did they ask you for money again, or did you just willingly buy them whatever they needed, or whatever situation it might be? Talking it with others, going through the same thing helps, because they can show me a different perspective, and that's where I could be aware of all of the enabling things that I was allowing and doing.
See, in some ways, we consider that like a mirroring technique, right? We learn through other people that can see sides of us that we can't see, or that may be obvious to them but not obvious to us. There's some relationship advice that can go back to like people from the outside tend to see all the things that are not good, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, and the person in the relationship has like horse blinders on and only wants to see what they want to see. So sometimes there's truth on both sides of that, and sometimes it's like just back the heck out because I'm actually fine. But in this case, it's really helpful to have those other views.
Absolutely. I think one thing I noticed was, if I opened up to friends and family who I know love me but weren't going through the same situation, their point of view was, why do you even live with that? Why do you deal with that? You should just get rid of him. If he's going to drink, then you need to, like, you don't deserve that. And it took me to a place of, well, they don't understand. I'm not going to talk to him about it anymore because I don't know. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. That doesn't seem right. So I shut people out, but being around, surrounding myself with others in recovery or going through the same thing, with spouses or children or friends, family, um, I had to surround myself with people who understood what I was going through, who could give me the perspective or mirror, like, yes, I know what that's like. I can see how, but when I did that, I felt like I was enabling them instead of, and using those types of verbiage. I really just needed to surround myself with others, where I felt safe. I didn't trust anyone. I shut myself out from any kind of conversation that might lead to something uncomfortable. And until I was open enough to be vulnerable about what I was going through with friends in the same situation, that's where I finally realized and could be aware of the situation.
I love that you said that you needed to feel like safe so you could trust. I find that when I'm working with people that until they can feel safe, until they can feel trusted, they're going to guard all those things that they're thinking and feeling inside. They'll give you like the surface, everything's fine, everything's okay, the basic stuff, but they're not going to really open up and get to like the real meaning of things, the truth of the matters or the things that heal the soul. Um, I think of the tenderness of vulnerability and how that is so hard to just give to anybody. And you're trying to like go to people you trust, like mom, dad, whoever, like, and they're just seeing the outside view. They're just seeing all the bad, the negative, and they love you. And I think their intention's probably good, but that's not going to let you be vulnerable. Like they don't know what it's like to be you or be in your situation or be going through exactly what you're going through or what it's like to endure something like that with someone you love. So that safety and trusting is massive.
That's where I really feel strongly that groups like this, connecting with other people in the recovery world, that's where I've really been able to feel and heal, where I've been able to feel safe and can share and be vulnerable.
So one theme that we see a lot are people make assumptions. We have assumptions, and we think that we're going to either be responsible for someone getting worse, or if we don't do it perfect, it's going to fall apart, and we start to take almost ownership of somebody else's mental health or their addiction recovery. So this is one of the assumptions that we look at is, can you actually do anything to help your loved one get clean and sober? So let's start with that one. Like from your experience, could you do anything to make your loved one get clean and sober? Like
Nothing. I tried everything I could think of, and nothing worked. Nothing. No, I got mad. I got sad. I was willing to go along with anything they wanted. I gave them everything. I enabled. Nothing helped.
so in that vein, like, all right, you've tried it all, everything, and you're not. And I don't think Sarah's someone who naturally likes to be angry. Just kind of getting that vibe. She's very very tender, soft soul. So for you to go to that extent, that must have been really difficult. To like dig into that bag of tricks. Like, all right, here we go. Did they just laugh at you? Like when you get to that point?
I really
Are
felt
you
like
serious?
it was a bag of tricks. It really was like, do you know what I'm going to do this time? I'm going to be really mad. I'm going to get really mad and let them know exactly everything that they're doing wrong and hurting our kids and me and everyone around. I plotted it out. It was a bag of tricks. It didn't feel natural. I think I started crying at the end, and it made me hurt more. It made me dive deeper into the pain and suffering I was doing because of my action. It didn't change anything they did. Laughed, they fell asleep, I walked away. I don't think they heard any word I said.
Yeah, there's a kind of an inside the rehab joke when someone's going, let's just say someone's being very difficult, and it's like, whoa, what is going on? And they're really trying to manipulate to get their way. And the inside joke is, not my monkey, not my circus.
Nice. I like that
So,
one.
like, wait, it's not my monkey, it's not my circus. This is their stuff. Like I want to like help them be aware of their stuff, but I'm not going to own it. It's not my monkey, it's not my circus. And I think sometimes in that family dynamic, it feels like you're the monkey and it's definitely your circus, and maybe they're the one in charge, and it's just too much, too much.
Yeah.
So the next one is, what does clean and sober actually look like? Because we understand like clean, and just put it in a framework in this recovery language that you're learning a new vocabulary if you're new to this. Clean is when someone gets detoxed and they're kind of getting off of everything. The sober is more of a behavioral side. Like, is your mentality getting healthy? Are you letting go of bad behaviors that maybe came along with the addictions? Are you living true to your values? Are you starting to still yourself and calm and be more of a grounded person, or is it still chaos? Because most people in addiction live in a very chaotic way. Um, so can we help people stay clean and sober? And are our expectations realistic? So what do the expectations kind of feel like for you? And I know we talked a little bit yesterday, and this is where I'll frame this is, I know you did a lot of work on your own, and there was a point where your expectations kind of had to change. You want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I was super excited when my spouse went to rehab, and I was like, he's doing it. He's going to be sober. This is awesome. And then he came out, and it was walking on eggshells for a while. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if it was going to last. All of a sudden, you should do 90 meetings in 90 days. And it was, are you serious? Like, you're finally sober, but now you have to be there all the time. And I had to get to a point where I was willing to accept what their recovery was going to look like. And it changed over time. It's not a meeting every single day. But I had to be willing And that was not my expectation, to have to say, oh, now you're going to go to your recovery center, your AA meeting, you're going to talk to sponsors and sponsees. And it seemed like so much time. I did not expect that. I had to change my expectations to a little talk every single time. Okay, he's going to his meeting. This is a good thing. This means he wants his recovery to last. I definitely didn't say, are you going to your meeting today? Because at that point I'd learned that's not going to work out.
Hey, honey, you going to do this today?
You're going to your meeting, right? So I had to acknowledge that he was choosing to go to a meeting because he wanted recovery. That's where his sobriety was taking him. He was actively seeking it. And it was hard to, meeting with your sponsor again. Okay. Meeting with, you have another meeting to go to. That's hard on the family side, because I felt like he took so many years of our life with this addiction, which really was me taking so many years of my life trying to control it, that my expectations were not realistic in any way. But I was surrounding myself with people who could say, oh, it's good that they're going to a meeting. That's him actively living in his sobriety. So expectations are hard.
I like that you brought up choice, because choice, I mean, we talk about like, well, what can we do? We can make it a little harder for them by holding healthy boundaries. Like if for an example would be, you can't drink, and you can't drink around at home or in the family, period. Well, just this time. Oh, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. And as soon as you compromise that, then you're enabling, right? But if you hold to a health boundary, hey, I love you and I love my kids, and that's not going to happen. And if you're going to do that, here is the boundary. It's been vocalized. You don't get to come home. You don't get to stay here. Well, that makes it a little harder, because now if that person goes out and they can't come home and they're sleeping on a bench for a few days, that's not the reason for this bench picture, but if they're doing that, they're going to start to become more aware of, wow, man, my choices have a consequence. And my loving partner is no longer letting me get away with it. And all the people I go to, I've lost them letting them get away with it too. So choice is really powerful. And this picture of the bench, I want to bring it up. There is a program that has a bench as part of their recovery program. And basically it's this: if someone comes in and they take people right out of homelessness, they take people right out of the street, they walk in there and they say, all right, if you want to do our program, they give them the expectations. This is what it looks like. It's a 2-year program. It doesn't cost you anything except for everything. You can give us all your time. We're going to teach you. We're going to train you. We're going to give you all the tools and resources. We're going to give you a job. However, you cannot join the program until you decide to get up off this bench on your own and come into the program. So they sit them on this bench and they leave them out there for a while. And it can be minutes. It can be hours. And then if that person decides to get up off that bench and walk into the program, they don't have their phone. They don't have anything. They don't have they don't have a bag. It's just, this is it. So it's a really hard choice, but they choose it, and that's their own choice. The bench, you choose that move. It's definitely, that's just an analogy for a microcosm of choices that need to be made that may lead up to that point where someone chooses, all right, the pain that I'm in, the pain I'm causing, the pain I feel, it's actually going to be a little bit more, let's say, less pain to go change now. So the scale rating, I like to phrase it this way: the pain to stay the same is actually greater than the pain to change. So when that ratio is hit, people tend to move into what's actually a little easier, in this case, getting help and changing.
I agree with that.
And you can be challenged, though, because that might work for a while, and then old patterns might kind of pour back in. So how do we keep ourselves from working harder than them and not letting those old patterns come back?
Oh, I like that question, because I like wording it that way. Are you working harder than them? Like, are you focused on their recovery more than they are? And I wish it would have had that when in active addiction. Like, am I trying to make him stop more than he is? It takes time to get to that point. I think that's a question I could ask every single day in every situation, whether it's with my alcoholic or my children, or I mean, am I trying to get them to do their homework more than they are doing it? I don't know. So I think that's an awesome question that anyone could benefit from, because you're focusing on someone else. You're not focusing on yourself. And part of working my alcoholic chose AA as his recovery. I chose Al-Anon as my recovery because I really value the 12 steps, because it helps me focus on me. I am overwhelmed. I need to connect with a higher power. And it helped me realize I could focus on me instead of the drinking or whatever other situation in my life.
Tell us a little more about Al-Anon and how that's been helpful for your path and not overworking.
Al-Anon, I was mad to go at first. My friend took me and she said, "Oh, you should come with me. You got to come to this class." And I was mad, and I probably cried the first meeting. And I was like, another thing I have to do because he's drinking. Like, I don't have time. I'm doing everything. I'm taking care of all the kids and all the carpools and work and food and everything. And so I didn't go back for a couple of months. And then I went back and I listened to what people said, and I cried for a couple of months, and I didn't want to share. And then I got to a point where I was so desperate that I still was trying harder. I was working harder than him. I was trying to change. I was trying to cure him. I was trying to get every possible thing I could do. And then I decided I needed to try and share. I wanted to be involved somehow. So I shared in a meeting. And I don't remember anything I shared. But the feeling I felt, I could walk into the room. It was people I could trust when I didn't have anyone, people that knew what I was going through without me having to say anything. And I get that every single week when I go. I am surrounded by people who I don't have to explain any situation, and they're not going to judge me in any way. We're all just there trying to connect with each other, be surrounded by people that know how I feel and can give me the support and love that I stripped myself of for years. And then the program for it, it's the same 12 steps as AA, it's same wording exactly. And so I can work on myself. And I felt like I was too selfish to work on myself. No, I have a family, I have a spouse, I have this and that. I don't have time for self-care. I didn't know what I liked, but being surrounded by others, that connection is what I needed. And when I chose to be vulnerable and share and say, I don't even know what I'm sharing or why I'm here, that opened doors, probably just opened my mind and my heart to allow me to feel. Because I would cry every day in the shower, but I wouldn't let any other emotion out ever. I wouldn't show anyone that I was having a bad day or what my life was like. And in there, I could feel. I learned how to feel again. And one of my close friends said, you have to feel to heal, which I say to myself every single day. It's okay to feel emotions. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad. It's okay. But my choice is how I act on that or react. And I've learned all of this stuff with the daily readings in Al-Anon, through the program, connecting with my higher power, and just what they've gone through, their experience, strength, and hope.
So a couple pieces that stood out to me. First of all, it sounded like I hear this a lot from family members. They'll say, like, "Oh man, I'm already overwhelmed. I've already got so much going on. You want me to do more?" I'm like, "Are you serious?" But you were able to shift from that by getting a feeling of connection and support and fellowship that you just weren't getting in other areas of your life. So that maybe that cost to benefit ratio was worth it to you. And maybe it took a while to recognize it.
Right.
But when you did recognize it, it became something like, wow, this actually is relieving some of my stress, pressure, anxieties. And I'm better able to cope with my life, my kids, my carpools, my business, all these different things. I don't have to be overwhelmed. Does that sound accurate?
Absolutely. And going back to the bench. I mean, I went to Al-Anon multiple times and months without leaving the bench. Like I just sat there and listened to everyone else. But until I wanted to participate, until I wanted to get off the bench and share or really just participate in any way. I did a reading one day and I was like, I felt instantly connected and a part of the group. But if I use the bench as the analogy, I went in there and still sat on it until I was willing to get off and do something and be willing to participate. That's when the change happened.
And then the other piece that I picked up on was you learned how to feel again. You recognize that you were doing a lot of it in silence. They call that suffering in silence. You're holding it in. Maybe the shower's okay, but not in public, not around friends, not around family. That's a really lonely way to live. And I can relate to that. I went through a lot of childhood shutdown of emotions, and it took me a long time to learn how to feel. And some of that was learning things like, kids should see you cry. Your family should see that you're a human, not a robot. Because if they can do that, then they can see that they can change too, and that mom and dad aren't on a pedestal. Like if they're not perfect, and I don't have to be perfect. Well, if mom can cry in front of me, I can cry. Or if dad can struggle, I can struggle. But if mom can heal and dad can heal, I can heal. Does that resonate with you? Resonate?
So much. And I remember the day that I did cry. I cried before they left for school. I was arguing with my alcoholic about something. And I was like, I've got to get the kids off to school. I have to leave the room and they're going to notice I was crying. And this was at a point where he was living his sobriety life. And he said, what happens if they see you cry? Do you think you have the chance to say, you know what, I'm having a rough morning, but I love you. Have a great day at school. I'm okay. I just needed to just feel sad for a minute, but I love you and I'll see you later. And I was terrified. I'm like, no, they cannot see me. But I went downstairs and I gave her a hug and said, I'm so sorry. Have a great day at school. I love you. And she was like, what is wrong? And I said, I'm just having a bad morning. Like it was a long night. I had bad dreams and I just was sad when I woke up, but I've been able to talk to someone and I cried and realized, it was just a dream and I'm okay. And so I just love you and hope you have a great day. And it blew my mind, the comfort and peace I had where someone else could point that out to me. And then I was able to share it with them. And they said, that just showed her it's okay to cry. Like it's okay to wake up and be mad or sad and you're okay. And you could talk to someone and you feel better. And that's when I was, wow, I could help. Like I didn't realize I was a robot. Mm-hmm. And once I got to that point where I was awareness is huge for me. Then I was like, wow, of course I want my kids to know they can cry. And I want them to know they could ask me or talk to me and we could just be together and cry. And that's okay because I'm okay now.
That's such a gift. And now your children get to learn through that experience and hopefully not repeat some of the patterns that you or, myself or us adults went through. So that's called, in some ways that's generational healing as you're sharing a new way to do things. They don't have to carry that in the next one.
Yeah. And living with the alcoholic father they had, I shut everything out. I didn't let him know emotions. I never talked to him about it. I never got mad at him in front of him, nothing. And so I don't know what goes through their mind, but I know that if I can work my recovery and if I can focus on me and do self-care and connect with a higher power, that they can see a change in me and know that we're okay and that maybe they'll be okay with whatever story they have to share later in life.
And if you're a mom out there watching or listening to this and your house is perfect, you're cleaning, you're cooking, your carpool's on top of it, you're getting the homework done with the kids, everything's just kind of right in the ship. The kids are going to church, whatever, all the things that you worry about. And I know I witnessed this with my own wife. But at the end of the day, you're just collapsing on the floor and you don't have the energy to be you and actually experience life other than the life you just gave your kids and your spouse. and you're just waiting for that Mother's Day that you're going to resent because it's the one day they act like they actually give a shit, but they really don't because they don't show up the other 365 days of the year.
Yep.
Or 364 years. So if you're that mother and you're hearing Sarah say, like, I had to take care of myself, God, I felt selfish. What switched for you that you finally realized, like, if I stay this way, I'm going to burn out, fry out, collapse?
I think that's where my rock bottom would be. I realized in addiction, and I'd gone to Al-Anon for a long time before sobriety happened for 2 years. And they kept saying, rock bottom, that's the only way they're going to change. You can't help them get to rock bottom. But I realized I have a rock bottom. My rock bottom doesn't have to be his. And that's where boundaries really stuck out with me, because I was like, no, I'm just being mean. Boundaries are just mean. But I realized I can't live like this anymore. So I need to say, you know what? I love you. I'm not going to pay for this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this. I was able to set boundaries. But until I really was to the point where I was overwhelmed, it was my rock bottom. And I could say, I need help. I can't do this alone. And that's where my 12 steps have helped me, because I was able to connect with a higher power who can, I feel peace and serenity every day. I choose to, because I can control my reactions. I can control my emotions. I can let myself feel and be okay with my emotions, but not let them control my day. And when I felt like I had to be so perfect and, okay, I've got carpool, I've got this and this, it was like, we've got to get out the door right now. We're going to be late. Everyone's going to know we're in charge. And now I can be like, you know what? We're all human. Like, it's okay if I'm 5 minutes late. I'm sorry. We're going to start 10 minutes early. I can be aware of, I can't control my kids to get in the car, but I've learned to, because I take care of myself, I can find peace and I can find serenity. I'm not wound up and stressed.
And I want to just give you this observation. One thing I do know a little about Sarah is she's got awesome kids. And from my view, and I'm sure you have your own opinions, they're doing really well. But I would also assume that as you become more peaceful and have had more serenity in your life, they can feel that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do they demonstrate that? Or are they like, oh, mom's more chill now? Mom's more like, got it. Like, do they want to hang out with you more? Do they want to be around you more?
Yeah, and we have conversations where, 14-year-olds sometimes don't want to talk, and they'll open up and be like, well, guess what happened at school today, and this and that, and someone was struggling, and I found out this person, and they're just willing to share and open up. I never had that before, because I don't have time to talk. I have to get this done. I have to get this done. I have this. I didn't have peace. They didn't want to talk to me because I had angry face on, probably from stress.
Resting anger face.
A resting anger face. That's what I have. Yeah, I had. So I think where I've allowed myself to cry in front of my kids, or say, you know, I'm really upset right now. I realize I can't control any situation, and I'm sorry I got upset with how you vacuumed or how you did this or that. I've learned to take responsibility for my emotions, but I've shared with them, and they know, oh, I can have feelings. I can talk to mom and be like, oh, I'm really mad that you woke me up this way, or you didn't wake me up in time. And we can have a conversation now where, okay, well, what's your responsibility in that? What's your part? How can I help?
And something that I think about with raising kids and having children. I know for me, I didn't want to just have children to have them resent me and hate me and leave at 18 years old. My hope is to have lifelong connection and relationships that are worth nurturing and enjoying for the whole life. And if you're carrying a lot of stress and you're carrying a lot of negativity or a lot of high tension, it's like a magnet that's been flipped, and you're going to push those kids away, and you're going to teach them that you're not a safe place for them to open up and share and bare their soul to you. But when you are grounded and when you're in a good place, you flip the magnet around, and they're going to want to come near you. They're going to want to be around you, and they're going to know you're a place that is non-judgmental, that cares about their feelings, that they can share. And who more do you want them going to when they're struggling than you?
Right.
If you're that person, if you're willing to be that, you're going to have some rock star relationships through those difficult years. And you may say, like, you may hear parents say teenage years are horrible. And maybe they are in some cases, but maybe it's just because we're not learning how to communicate. and they're making them horrible. And those kids are just really struggling, and they're horrible because they don't have a parent they can actually come and share their burden with.
Right. I think when I have peace and serenity, and when I can start my day with how I want my recovery to look like, my body language changes. I'm there. They can confront me. They don't have to worry about what I'm doing. It opens it up to our house is a safe place. And I definitely want them to come to me instead of other people.
Awesome. Well, I want to just go to this next session. We're gonna jump ahead a little bit because I think this is appropriate for the topic. What works? So, what are some things that work when we're trying to hold healthy boundaries, when we're trying to be helpers, not enablers? And these are just a couple bullet points, but we'll go through them and kind of talk about the ones that stand out to us. But the first one is take action on the things you can control. So, recognizing the things that are out of your control, the things that are within your control. What would taking action kind of look like in your experience there?
I like the word take action because I got so used to reacting. And so take action, the serenity prayer, grant me the serenity to, I can't even think of it on the spot.
Accept things I cannot
accept
change.
things I cannot change.
Courage to accept things that
the courage to accept things. No, I'm going to have to read it.
It's okay.
Anyways, now that I'm on the spot, I can't remember. Wisdom to know the difference. But the actions of things I can control. So I can take those thoughts with me where I can control my emotion. That's about it. I can react to something, or I can control how I feel, take a step back. I really can't control anything else.
That's wisdom right there. How about this next one? So we talked a little about self-care, and we're talking about the power of a community. So if Al-Anon works for you, maybe it works for somebody else. It could be a number of things. There's lots of resources out there. It could be getting your local a local sports team that you play. Like a lot of our clients play sober softball, or they get into pickleball leagues, and they find a tribe of people that are like-minded, going to open up to. What are some other resources that you might recommend for a family that's looking for more community?
Being involved. So self-care, I felt selfish for a long time, but once I really started doing it, I realized I was focusing on other things. Like, okay, my self-care today is going to be golfing because I love golf. So I had all that time where I wasn't thinking about the addiction or what they were doing and if they were drinking right now or if they weren't, or any of those types of things. I lost that. But when I started to focus on self-care, I was getting involved in things. I was volunteering at my kids' school again. I was in a golf league. So finding that support in the community, I made Al-Anon a priority. All of my kids know Tuesday night, no matter what, mom's going, and they hold me to it. But that just helped me change the focus. I had things I was doing for me, and it took away the obsession I had with the drinking and the alcohol. There's so many community activities and things. There's a lot of support groups. I know a lot on Facebook and online. Al-Anon, there's recovery for all sorts of addictions. Therapists, my therapist is amazing. There's group therapy that you can do. There's lots of people, but I think reaching out to someone else or focusing on something you enjoy doing and have that connection with a team is big for your own mental health, but takes the focus away. You're doing something you enjoy. So,
and I like how you keep bringing up the focus piece, because I think there's this tendency to focus on the problem. We put so much energy on this problem, my alcoholic or this addiction or this, that, and the other, the problem. And wrapped around that is a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of unknowns, and you can't control that. That's all on the stuff outside of your realm of control. But when you kind of flip it around and say, well, what is some of the solutions? What's the opposite of the problem? Well, one of the solutions is I take care of me. I join a club. I join a Lano. I enjoy golf again. And I kind of allow myself to let go of all that thinking of the fear, which we know fear is around the enabling side of the equation, and back on the solution, which is on the helping side of the equation. So when families take that upon themselves, all right, we're going to self-educate, we're going to find communities, we're going to take care of ourselves, and we're going to limit our worry time. I know for me, I've implemented this new space where I choose times of the day to worry. Like I literally will choose, all right, I'm going to focus on my kids right now, go through each of them, and I'm going to just, what am I worried about? And then I'll let myself kind of feel it because it gives me some ideas of how I could support them. And then I'll turn it to solutions. All right, now I'm going to take this to a higher level, and maybe I'll take it to prayer and say, well, God, help me figure out how to help this child with this problem that I've been aware of. What can I do to bring you into this equation and solve and not just be problems?
I love that because you're feeling the fear, and that's okay. And I wouldn't allow myself to feel fear. I'd be like, no, fear's bad. But you can do it in a healthy way. You can feel that emotion and say, okay, well, what is the fear? Naming it makes you aware of it, which helps take the scary part of it away.
What was you had a fun name for your
Oh yeah, I'm Sarah, but my Scara is like what my mind tells me. All the things I'm telling myself, that's not me. That's not the real me. That's Scara. She's my scary voice that is all fear in my head.
I want to see like a Two-Face costume where you're wearing two outfits and you just kind of turn and you all right, it's a Scara, guys.
Sarah.
There's Sarah. And really, really sell that because I think that'd be really therapeutic for me, at least.
It'd be good.
All right. So another one that's really important. So conversations with open-ended questions that are non-judgmental and promote curiosity. Now, there's a lot packed into that statement. But why are open-ended questions important? Why is non-judgment important? And why is curiosity important? What's your take on any one of those three? And I can help fill in the blanks.
I think connection, conversations, it's all about communication. So I wouldn't allow that with my kids or anyone else because I couldn't find peace and serenity. I was too focused on fear. But then when I surrounded myself with the community, that's when I had a chance to others who have lived through it. They asked me open-ended questions. Okay, well, what if he doesn't get sober? Then what? And I had to think, and it took the fear away because I was like, I don't know. I guess if he stops drinking tonight, I don't know what. Obviously I'd be happy, but then I was like, well, what would that really look like? And I didn't get that until I was surrounded by people who could support me in the way I needed to. People that were non-judgmental. But I like the curiosity part because my way is not the only way. And I needed to be, when you have an open-ended question, it's, I'm allowed to think of the answer. So I've learned to try to do that with my kids. Well, what's your part in that? Like, I know you didn't like how I woke you up today and you went back to sleep. Well, what can we do different? Like, what are your thoughts on that? What should we do next time?
No, that's an excellent model. And if we're looking at people at every stage of recovery, and even mental health, like if someone's really wound up, they're really in their struggle, they're not going to really benefit from statements or us telling them what to do or how to do it. If anything, they'll just build more resentments. And sometimes it reminds them of how crappy they might feel inside. Oh, you're just reminding me how terrible I'm doing. And what you say is very far away from what they may actually hear. But when you bring in non-judgment and curiosity and you help explore finding solutions, everybody's ideas are always best when they feel like they're their own ideas. Mm-hmm. So if you ask good questions, you can help lead someone to coming up with a really good idea. Whether or not they are ready to choose to take actions, up to them, but then that might be more to talk about. So I've noticed that you're not ready to choose that. You want to tell me why or explore it with me? What's going on with that? Is there something holding you back that you just don't feel like you're ready to do that?
Well, I think for me, the tone as well as body language. If I'm asking a question, my tone usually changes. I'm not accusing anymore. I'm not reacting to them being mad at me. And so the judgment's out. But if I'm thinking about what kind of question can I ask, it changes my body language, and my tone can usually be like, I'm sorry you felt that way. What would you like to do? Or with my alcoholic, like I realize that you're not listening to what I'm saying or whatever. I mean, it's hard not to be non-judgmental, but practice open-ended questions is valuable.
Well, I like that self-awareness again, because you're aware of like, all right, if my tone is manipulative, or my tone is judgy, or my tone is harsh, then am I trying to force them to change? Am I trying to force them to make the choice? But if I'm aware and I know myself, I'm going back to my value system here. I know that that's not something I'm going to live by. And now my tone is warm, it's soft, it's loving, it's not judgmental. And if they say something that totally shocks me, I might have a reaction because I'm human,
Right.
but I'm going to get better at, all right, okay, I can breathe through that. That was hard to hear. Ouch. I love you. Keep going. Like I'm here for you. I'm not going to just shut it down because you said something that hurt me. I'm trying to get to your soul here so your soul can come out and feel comfortable and share what's really powerful and needed to heal. So our next one here is we've talked about this a little bit too, is getting real and vulnerable. I think, Sarah, you've given a lot of really good examples of that, of sharing from a position of I. I feel worried. I'm feeling nervous that this is a struggle, or it just isn't quite. It's kind of icky. What would be some examples that you come up with where you've allowed yourself to get vulnerable, or helped the whole family unit or the alcoholic become more vulnerable?
I think when I changed it from blaming, because in active addiction and active drinking, it was like, why are you doing this? Like, I'm so scared that, like, what if you don't come home tonight? What if you kill someone else if you're driving drunk? What if you, and so it was a blame and just all of these things and just saying all my fears out loud, which I'm like, I'm just trying to be helpful. Like, you need to know this is our worry. And they couldn't feel that worry. It was more laughing, like, I'm not going to kill anyone. I'm going to be fine.
I'm a good driver.
Drive. Yeah. And they would drive the next day.
So that compromised your values,
right,
by holding to that fear and being stuck in that.
Absolutely. So I felt like I was getting real, but when I made it about me, instead of blaming them, like, you're doing this and you make me so worried, I'm scared every day because of your choices, I could take that out. And I'm worried because I love you. I'm worried because I don't know what tonight looks like. I don't know how you're going to live. And that goes, I mean, it's just steps into, well, if I have my self-care, I can get to a place where I'm not obsessed about that. And I can explain to you and get real and vulnerable, where it's, I'm scared when you leave because I don't know if I'll see you again. Instead of blaming, you're going to drive drunk tonight. I know you are. And I don't know if you're going to get a DUI or you're going to kill someone, or, so it's just a learning and being aware. And just love that word. But I had to get okay with myself. The blaming, I had to step away from being aware that I was blaming. That's where it changed for me, where I could be real and they could feel, oh, she does love me. Whether they were listening to the words, it felt different. Instead of blaming, I'm just worried. Like, I'm worried this is the last time I'm going to see you because I don't know how it's going to end.
I love that really bringing it back in and being willing to, like, be vulnerable, even though your person isn't quite ready yet. And I've noticed this too. A lot of people in their addiction, that when their families do something that they're not expecting, like be kind or be vulnerable, it really trips them up, because they've got these stories often in their head that, well, this person, Sarah's always going to be like this. She's always going to nag me, or blah, 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 blah. She ain't going to change. Or kids will say, my parents will never understand me. They'll never get me. And then all of a sudden you start to understand them and you start to get them. It's like, I'm exposed here. I better do something. I better change. So you'll see oftentimes there'll be an increase in reactivity. Well, I got to push her harder. I got to push parents harder because I'm not comfortable now.
Yeah.
I made you uncomfortable all this time. Now I'm finally uncomfortable. So that's part of that resetting the framework to one of non-judgment, open-ended questions, curiosity, tough but loving, and then you add in really healthy boundaries. So you know that you drove drunk. You're not staying here tonight. I love you. When you get clean and sober, we can talk. We can start working through these. But you let me last time. And don't do that anymore. And you don't have to get reactive. You don't have to get angry. It doesn't have to be mean. It doesn't have to be mad. It doesn't have to cause this big old commotion. But now there's a new line that they have to understand. And if they don't live it, there's a consequence.
So it goes back to enabling when we talked about that. I was enabling so much and living in that fear and was like, I'm so helpful. He's so lucky to have me. But I was easy to blame because it was like, you do everything. Oh yeah, you do everything. I always hear about all the things you do. I was just feeding his blame game to me when I was blaming him for everything. And so we were both sick. And so until I could get to a place where I was like, I'm at my rock bottom. I cannot do this anymore. That's when I was willing to open up to all of these things I've learned in recovery. But I took that blame away from them. I shocked them and they were like, wait, what? And now I can't blame her for being mad at me again tonight. Now what do I do?
Yeah, and I find that like even in parenting with like kids, and as soon as it turns into this fight, and you get kids yelling at you, you're yelling at your kid or whatnot, all of a sudden it's like you lost, like you lose that fight because now like they got ammo and they got you under the table, like you did it again, like so. I just see that whole blame dialogue, it's just so unproductive. But our closest people, they know all of our soft spots, they know all of our weaknesses. So we have to establish our own value systems, our own preparation so that we're ready for any situation. There's a Stoic philosopher named Epictetus that I love. I read his Stoicism all the time, but he says, what did we do other than prepare for this? We've been preparing for this all along. We should be ready for it. So we don't have to, you got my soft spots. You know that if you say that thing, it has in the past been so hurtful. But I'm now operating from a set of framework rules of communication and how I live my values. Say whatever you want. It doesn't change my values. My values are I'm non-judgmental. I love you. I'm going to hold boundaries. I'm going to be curious about solutions. Now, if you're going to be belligerent and rude, my next boundary is I'll talk to you when you're calmed down, but I'm not going to take it. I'm not a doormat. I'm not going to tolerate abuse. So that's kind of that space of as families are healing, they're learning this language of self-love. They're practicing self-care. They're establishing healthy boundaries. They're communicating those boundaries. They're recognizing and becoming aware of patterns that are unhealthy and moving into this realm of, all right, we can do this together. I will meet you where you're at. You can be working on you. I'm working on me. I'm building a really cool life over here. I'm building a Ferrari life. It's beautiful. It's got all the things I like in it. You're welcome to come and get in my Ferrari and help with it. But these are the established rules around the Ferrari. If you want to live in that Pinto piece of crap trash relationship we had when your addiction was flaring and hot, enjoy that life. I'm not in it with you anymore. It takes a lot of power to get there. How do we get there, Sarah? Let's kind of wrap it around that. Like, how do you help how did you get to that point where you're like, this is my life, my Ferrari life, or whatever your favorite car or whatever your analogy is, and we're satisfied with it?
It really took I couldn't trust anyone. So the community and the support I felt with the program I chose was huge. Working with the therapist gave me a chance to be honest with someone, but more with myself. She gave me a chance to open up and, well, how do you feel about that? I'm like, I don't know, mad. She's like, well, is it mad or is it annoyed? Is it irritated? So I couldn't do it alone. I think that if you can, I mean, when you're alone, you're just living in fear. And anxiety means I don't have any choices. I am stuck in this. And that's when I got to my rock bottom. And I was like, I cannot, something has to change. I can't be this person anymore. And so for me, community, being able to reach out to people, I have a list of people and their numbers that I can text anytime and just say, wow, today is rough. Like today is taking more than I can give. And I don't have to explain anything else. And they can just be there for me in a way, but you can't do it alone. Support with however and whatever that looks like, even joining your favorite sport team or whatever, joining pickleball or doing whatever, you're allowing yourself to connect with someone else. And I think just support and love and feeling like, oh, this person cheered me on at the game. Like that's loving yourself. I didn't love myself for a long time. I didn't love who I turned into.
Mm.
And I had to find myself again through self-care and connection with others. And I had to have people point out some things because I was like, no, I'm not. They're like, yeah, you are. You're really good at that. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And I couldn't do that alone. So for me, it's all about support and being surrounded by people I trust now. So I could slowly trust my alcoholic. That took time, but I had to practice on someone else who I knew wasn't going to hurt me and who was there for me just to love. They just loved me.
And people when they're in their addiction are master manipulators. They're masters at what they do. I mean, they're driven by survival instincts to get the next fix. And that's a powerful beast. And coming from a position of not in that, and if you're not in alcohol or not in drugs, you're like a sheep sitting down in a field with a bunch of lions coming out. Like you don't have a lot of support. You need watchdogs. You need people in your corner who are looking for the lion behaviors, the things that are going to come out and get you and teach you how to turn yourself into a lion yourself that says, no, I won't be screwed with. I love you, but you're not screwing with me. And I got all these eyes helping me know when and where all that addiction stuff is coming out. And I think it's funny. I've heard this analogy from clients from time to time. They'll say, hey, when I'm in recovery, my addict self is over in the corner doing push-ups. Never takes a break. He's always getting stronger. So for me to keep up, I got to keep getting stronger. Otherwise, as soon as I let my guard down, addict guy, he's pumped. He's buff. He's ready to take over my life and wreck it. So I think it's the same for families. Like as you get healthier, you got to keep doing the work because your tender side that's going to be taken advantage of, the lamb in you, it's over in the corner taking a nap. And it's like, I want a break. So you have to be ready because if you're not, it could very quickly, regress to the mean, and you're going to have a lot of the same, and a lot of sadness and a lot of hurt and pain. But at least you got a lot of knowledge. So it's not hopeless. It never is hopeless.
Never hopeless. There's tools out there to use, to learn to use.
But as we look at expectations, like relapse is part of recovery. The difference between relapse and relapse. Lapse is usually short, and behaviors don't get horrible. They're honest. They work on that piece of coming back to the support system. As a family member, we can also lapse. Our behaviors can lapse.
Yeah.
We can go back to old patterns pretty quick.